We are back, Nico. It's time for rapid fire news. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome. I'm so pumped with today's session as we have lined up so you know really top topics, which in the end pretty much correlate to each other. I'm just thrilled. I'm pumped. How are you this morning, Pierre?
Oh, same here, Nico. I couldn't sleep last night, so excited I was for today. I was just laying in my bed, dreaming about the topics that we were going to discuss today. And what about noting down this, and what about that? And to the detriment of my girlfriend, I guess, who also had a hard time sleeping. But that's okay sometimes. Yeah, that it's a give and take in a relationship, right?
Yeah, these are the facts, and that's why you're locked up in your home room, right? At home, because she wouldn't let you out, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Well, Nico, how has your week been here in general? You're hard at work. How is everything on your front? You're in Germany, right?
Yeah. Still in Germany. Weather is still cold, but we're managing to get things done. I'm still recovering from the knee surgery, but all good,
Yes.
right? Crazy weeks ahead of us. Crazy weeks already past us, but it's all good.
Yes.
How are things on Malta up here?
Yes, and everything is fine here as well. We are hard at work preparing our New York event, which is taking place in May. So the whole team is focused, trying to get that on board, and then we are launching our news portal as well in a couple of weeks. So that's exciting times for us as well. And at the same time, trying to keep up with everything that is happening in the industry. It's not easy. Sometimes there's some report coming out and you're like completely missed it and blanked it, and you have to like make an effort to kind of get up to speed with things. And you know speaking of which, there's so much interesting things to talk about today, and we have been told off here by Nicholas, our head of marketing, a bit for it's fun to go really deep into topics, but after all, we have a lot to talk about today, a lot of different reports, and we're gonna try to stick within the hour today. And see if we can cover all bullet points here. But just to summarize a little bit, what we have in front of us today are a couple of really interesting topics, which is we're going to discuss Las Vegas Sands, who are still kind of playing the waiting game, entering the digital environment. We're gonna discuss the latest numbers from New York, which has been a reoccurring topic here for weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's an ever evolving landscape over there. We're gonna discuss the impending potentially acquisition uh, uh, by Aristocrat of Playtech. We're gonna discuss another related topic here, which is the fact that WinBet is considering to offload its online department at a very discounted price, so we can potentially see our first victim, let's say, in the US market from the tier one operators. And then going over to Sweden as well, two interesting news stories coming out from Sweden. The Swedish minister that is responsible for the gambling regulation, Ardalan Shekarabi, has done a U-turn and is now not going to implement the temporary deposit limit and bonus limits that should have been implemented in Sweden due to the COVID-19 pandemic. That is now not going to be implemented. So we're going to discuss that. And last but not least, for those of you who are paying attention to the stock market here yesterday, could see that the Evolution share price crashed 10%. 2 billion euro were wiped out of the market cap, based on rumors that there is a new short seller report that is coming here as well. And also we can see here from the chat that we have a little bit of a request to talk about ICE, the biggest conference in the iGaming industry here. The fact that some of the biggest exhibitors have withdrawn from the conference, the likes of Novomatic, Mercure. Those two are two of the biggest two of the biggest exhibitors at ICE. But in addition to that, many other stand exhibitors have also decided to pass this year. The likes of Yggdrasil, Play and Go are not going to exhibit, and so on. So yeah, those are also interesting discussion points as well that we'll try to cover here. But Nico, that's a little bit of a summary today. What do you say? What shall we start with here today? And also before we begin here, we have a very close eye on the chat here, by the way. We can see all the comments. We can say good morning to you, Robin. We can see the comments regarding ICE. And also we can see that Charles is listening in here. So we are keeping a very close eye on the chat here. So if we misspeak today, if we say anything that is out of order, that is not correct, that is factually not good, we are absolutely being scrutinized live here. So we are putting ourselves on the limit, on the verge here today. So feel free to correct anything if you guys may, or if you want to add context here, and we'll speak about that in the chat today as well. And good morning as well to Sanaida as well, who is listening from Dublin. So Nico, what do you say? How shall we start today's podcast?
Yeah, so as some of the topics literally interact with each other, we should just start with the latest and greatest from New York, and then just head over to the topics which are linked to the marketing spendings, which actually already are taking its toll. So why don't we just start with the New York numbers? So as said so often, as of now, we don't have official numbers yet. So these are just estimates, but these estimates are looking like New York, the state of New York, has the best start of any state being started so far, and they are literally looking forward to take the first place within a short time with respect to sports betting revenues. So as of now, and these numbers are just based on the first 8 days for 4 operators. As of now, we already have 6 operators, with BetMGM starting their offerings 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, at the 10th. And then we have another one already starting last week by the 17th. So these numbers will increase for sure. What we have seen is that Caesars Digital has taken the first place with roughly $260 million in handle and a revenue of 23 million. FanDuel, second place with 200 million in handle and roughly 14 million in revenue. DraftKings, third place, 130 million in handle, roughly 11 million in revenue, and BetRivers having roughly 11 million in handle and $500,000 in revenue. As you can see, Caesars Digital leading the pack. So it seems like their initial offerings with a 3,300 sign up and deposit bonus is paving their way to actually become the number one in the US. If I'm not mistaken, GeoComply has already released some numbers that most of the customers, we are talking 1.2 million signups and 950,000 are totally new signups, so never been linked to any kind of sports betting, of course not to sports betting. So they for sure did not cross George Washington Bridge and place their bets in Fort Lee. So the numbers we are seeing, just the numbers, we're not talking about the costs because this is a different topic. The first numbers we are seeing are just insane. So what is your guess on this one, Pierre?
Yeah, no, like you're saying here, there's some interesting context to take place here in New York, of course, and everyone expected New York to kind of break all records here, and that is exactly what is taking place here as well. But just to give some context, according to the initial numbers, it's something like 4% of all the people in the entire state have signed up on account to either of these operators in the first 2 weeks. That is just unprecedented, even with the size of that state and so on and so forth. And the handle is already bigger than both the second and the third biggest state combined, which is New Jersey and Pennsylvania combined, essentially. And again, just to reiterate here what you mentioned, here, Nico, it's obviously that Caesars have taken pole position in New York with 47% of the revenue, but it's not unexpected considering that they launched with this incredibly high deposit bonus of $3,000 essentially, and considering the fact that in New York there is a 51% tax, which is the highest kind of tax rate arguably in the world. Then it just puts into context how fierce the competition is amongst the operators in order to sign up these accounts from day one, in order to then, in a more long-term view, then earn back those incredible expenses that they are incurring here from day one. So although the numbers are very, very high and the operators are generating a lot of revenue, you can be sure that they are obviously generating far more expenses in that state. And it's still a question to be answered how these operators are going to be profitable in the long run.
Yeah, and touching down on the cost side. As of now, and based on the one of the latest articles from the New York Post, user acquisition costs in the US rank in between $300 and $500 per user, which is just insane numbers. If you just think about the long or the lifetime player value of a sports betting customer in Germany is ranking about 500 to 700 euros, and this is the lifetime value, right? And if already the user acquisition costs actually bite off 80% of this lifetime value, comparing the New York numbers or the US numbers with some German lifetime value, it just indicates that this is a really, really make it or break it market we are seeing in the US already. And one of the results is that one of the tier one operators, the well-established operators, already had or is aiming or thinking about stepping out of the market. So just touching down on the WinBet. On the WinBet topic, because they already have 14 licenses in the US. They are live 8 states, and they also are one of the 9 lucky winners holding a New York license as well. So obviously they just recalculated the numbers and came up with, okay, it's not feasible with our approach to actually face the costs of user acquisition cost, $300 to $500 per user. And they are intending to sell their digital assets. Funny fact, so we're talking about one operator owning 14 licenses, being live in 8 states already. Of course, companies which are interested to enter the United States as a gaming market, they can rocket start themselves by buying the assets of Bet Digital, which comes, first of all, the price is what the official price, which is circulating in the news, is $500 million for all the assets of WinBet. So, and then, you know, the rumors are starting. Who are the actual runner-ups? So it's, of course, Fanatics, which failed to be even considered for a New York license with their joint bid with Penn National. Bet365 also missed out on the New York license. Maybe 888 is also eyeing on the, if they are allowed to actually enter the US market due to the William Hill acquisition, which they did in Europe. Then we have companies like Disney or DAZN, which might buy the assets of WinBet to actually start a new vertical within the US. And then we, of course, have the sleeping dragon with Las Vegas Sands, which as of now literally bench themselves, having deep top pockets, but actually they are kind of, okay, we are not in the runner-ups for the US market with respect to digital, because they are well established with their retail casinos, of course, in Asia and in Las Vegas as well. So I'm pretty sure this will be a bidding war all over the WinBet assets. So what's your take on WinBet and the that New York actually took its toll?
Yes, it's a great analysis here, Nico, and it's something to keep an eye on for anyone who is interested in the iGaming industry macro trends, because it's been a topic that everyone has been talking about in the last year when it comes to the US market, which is this insane war for signing up players sustainable in the future, and which operators will be able to come out of this insane cost-driven approach as actually the winners at the end, if any. And I just wanted to kind of, before we continue here, saying that good morning as well to Marco. He's mentioning here as well that he's agreeing with the insane numbers from New York with the $3,000 deposit bonus from Caesar's side. It's just a massive investment on the cost side. And also good morning to Henry and Rory. Hope you guys are doing well. But yes, back over to WinBet here. So as a macro trend now in the United States, it's been on everyone's mind, like, who are going to emerge as the winners and losers from the market as it looks today. And it seems like WinBet is the first operator to capitulate in a sense here from the tier one operators. We are seeing some operators struggling and not meeting kind of their targets. I would say I would keep a very close eye on Kindred's next quarterly report for this very reason, because it seems that they have not been able to live up to their expectations so far. They never aimed to become a tier one operator, Kindred, but they did aim to achieve high single-digit market capitalization in the markets where they operated in. So that has not been the case so far. They are more in the lower single digits, kind of like 1% market cap in the markets where they are operating. And so that's obviously not what they have expected. But they are still active in the US market. They haven't withdrawn from the market yet, which is what we are seeing now from WinBet. And the question is then, following this announcement by WinBet, who will be the next victim? Because we can kind of expect that the market as it looks today is not going to be sustainable. And Katie, good morning to Katie as well. She is mentioning something very interesting here, which I think we can segue into this other topic, because while Win is now potentially offloading WinBet at a massive discount. They have been floating the $500 million number to offload the department, as opposed to the valuation of like over $3 billion when they were going to do a SPAC here a year ago to enter the public market on the side. But so what Win is doing is that they are potentially offloading the online department. But at the same time, some really interesting news emerged here the other day that Win has secured a license to open a resort in the UAE as the first potential gambling resort within the Emirates, essentially. So Nico, do you have any more context on this side? Because this is news that or it's been rumors that have been floating around for a long time that there are a lot of activity within the UAE and a lot of lobbying efforts in order to enter that market. And now we finally see the first player who is now entering the UAE and the sixth biggest city in the Emirates, which is Ras Al Khaimah. So any context here, Nico?
So first of all, I just see the UAE opening gaming and real gambling has already been implemented in Dubai. So this kind of headline, I just see it as a valid headline as soon as the resort finally opens. Because if you just think about the Queen Elizabeth II is literally staying in Dubai for already like 6 or 7 years, and this one was expected to being the first casino being opening in the UAE, so in Dubai there. So this rumor of UAE opening up for gaming and gambling has been out there for quite a long time, but we have never seen one of the tier one operators like WinBet or LVS or whatever name you want to come up with, actually selling off an asset like the digital vertical with a discounted price of 500 million. And as you just already mentioned, they have been evaluated with more than 3 billion, as they have been looking forward to actually do a spec at the New York Stock Exchange. So it seems like they are in need of money, urgent money. They already restructured their debts with a Chinese bank a couple of months ago, freeing 100 million. They need that money to actually follow their plans of opening a multi-billion-dollar real estate in the UAE. So it seems like this kind of rumor, UAE opening up for gaming and gambling, is becoming reality. So how it actually works in the UAE, as a friend of mine actually runs the lottery in Dubai. First of all, it was called Emirates Lotto. You could go to a shop, buy a lottery ticket, all good. But then, out of a sudden, they just remembered, okay, gambling is forbidden due to Islam. Then they literally renamed the Emirates Lottery. And as of now, if you're buying food, water, whatever, at a higher price, you get a lottery ticket free of charge. So then it's like, okay, you don't specifically buy a lottery ticket because it's giving free of charge. So I'm pretty sure within the resort, Wynn is about to open up, they will slice and dice something similar. Like, okay, you're staying at a specific hotel room category, then you're getting free vouchers to actually, go to a roulette table or whatever. You're having drinks at the bar, of course, non-alcohol drinks. Then you're giving a free to play ticket as well. So it's a little bit complicated in the UAE, based to their strong belief in religion and the Islam. But as our industry always found a solution, even if the stakes are high, I'm pretty sure that we will see something in the UAE as well. And Wynn actually selling off their assets in the promising market of the US indicates that this rumor is pretty close to becoming a reality as well.
Absolutely, and something to keep in mind here. I mean, the why is the UAE the big prize for the established land-based operators? I mean, I think that's a question that is quite simple to answer, because if you go to Hippodrome in London, or if you go to Venetian in Las Vegas, or wherever a high roller casino you go to in Europe or the West, you can see that the biggest high rollers are either from Asia or they are from the UAE, and so you have a demographic that is carrying the profits of these casinos abroad, essentially, and this prospect of being able to open a land-based casino in the UAE would obviously be potentially extremely profitable here. And as another context, for those of you guys who have been to Dubai, you might have noticed that there is actually a Caesar's Palace in Dubai. Caesar's Palace obviously being one of the biggest land-based casino resorts in Las Vegas, and one of the most famous brands in the world. But in Dubai, the Caesar's Palace does not offer any gambling. And you would expect, of course, that this is a strategic move from Caesar's Palace in order to have a footprint, in order to be in Dubai for the potential of one day being able to offer gambling in addition to the hotel that they offer there. So that's how lucrative that market could potentially be. And as you say here, Nico, it's a very, in a way, it's a very conservative jurisdiction, of course, with the strong kind of ties to the Islamic religion and the laws that comes with that. But at the same time, they have also realized, of course, that opening up for kind of the Western culture and being able to attract Western tourists, businesses, entertainment, and so on, they need to be able to offer the type of entertainment that we are used to in the West. And so that's why when you go to a hotel resort in Dubai, you are able to drink alcohol, for example, but that is the only place in Dubai you are able to consume alcohol is within the resorts. You're not able to buy alcohol in a store or anything like that. And then gambling is kind of seen as the one step beyond being able to offer alcohol, and that's why it's taken time. Like the Emirates, the kingdom, they want to become more liberalized. They want to open up for more, but it's a slow progress in this environment. But it's now happening, and it's now taking place. So it will be interesting to see, of course, what Wynn does with its resorts in the UAE, and it's expected to open in 2026.
Yeah, so as said, Wynn might be the first one actually opening up the resort, but as you already pointed out, I'm pretty sure that Caesars has already lined up each and everything, and they're literally ready to start. And as soon as Wynn actually opens up their resorts, I'm 100% sure that it doesn't take that much of time. First of all, for the Queen Elizabeth II to actually reopen the casino, which is already on the ship, and then of course the Caesars Palace as well.
Absolutely. And good morning to Jacob as well, who is chiming in here as well. Making a good point here in regards to the fact that DraftKings are so aggressive on the American side right now with their marketing spend. That is, just as a fun fact with DraftKings, they are spending more in marketing alone than what they have total revenue in the entire organization. What other company can say that? And so the question is, of course, when are they going to generate profits? If we are to believe BetMGM, they have actually predicted that they are going to be profitable from 2023 already, which is ahead of the expectations of the shareholders. So that is kind of the operators are looking at, like, when are we actually going to make a profit here, not just spending to sign up as many customers as we can. And the funny thing is that any operator could start making profits from tomorrow. They just have to stop their insane drive to drive in new traffic, but then obviously they will be limited with the traffic they have at the mercy that they will stay, of course. But at some point they will need to look at more reasonable marketing spend, of course. So that's the question in the US. And just as a final point on DraftKings as well, they have obviously been absolutely battered on the stock market here in the last 6 months or so. Lost about 70% of the share value. At the bottom here, a couple of days ago, they had a market capitalization of 7.5 billion, and that is in contrast to the 22 or 23 billion when they peaked in September. And so another question mark is appearing here, which is how are they going to continue to generate and raise money, because they don't have infinite money. They have about $1 billion or so USD in the bank that they can use to continue to spend. But when that money runs out, what do they do?
Yeah, and just to give one more indication about marketing spendings, right? Because you just said they are spending more in marketing, DraftKings, than they actually have in revenue. It's triple the size. It's triple the size. So they have revenues of $250 million. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the Q3 numbers where they actually spent $750 million in marketing alone. Right. So it's not like a little bit more than they have the revenue. It's triple the size. And as you already pointed out, BetMGM, they already spent 1 billion in marketing already. So they have a deficit of 1 billion. So it's not an easy game where like, okay, you then just spend like 10, 20, 30 million dollars. Which come across with the 10 million or 25 million you have to put into the to the New York license. It's a big number game, right? It's a big number game, and this is something we should never forget. Should we hop over to the LVS quarter reports? As we, with the UAE, we've already been in between Asia, where the actual winnings from LVS come from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to kind of bring up the comments here from Lars Toriano, who's chiming in. First of all, thanks for the nice comment. And in regards to the audio, absolutely, very well aware of this. We're kind of working on it. And from a podcast listening experience, audio is obviously something that has to work. But we're making a little bit of an effort here with our mics. We are both kind of synced today, Nico, but it's going to improve in the future, that's for sure. And also, Lars has an interesting point here, which is that none of the operators that were granted license in New York were particularly, how would you say, they weren't, the shareholders weren't particularly overjoyed of the fact that they were granted license in New York, even though it's the biggest state to open up in North America so far. And so the shareholders are realizing as well that the 51% tax, the incredibly high marketing spend in order to acquire customers leads to the bigger question mark, which is will they ever be able to turn a profit in the United States? So the shareholders are very aware of what is going on here, which I think is quite interesting. Not like a year ago or a year and a half ago, where everyone was just talking about how big the US market will be. Now the discussion is more how do the operators actually turn profit in the market. And to close it up again, we have our event in New York taking place in May. And what we are doing is we are creating a panel just on this subject, where a couple of the Scandinavian CEOs from the operators will be discussing in North America, how do you turn a profit? And I think that's a quite interesting topic for a New York iGaming conference. But yes, nonetheless, Nico. So let's jump over to the Las Vegas Sands quarterly earnings here, or we're gonna kind of zoom in more into the into Las Vegas Sands kind of stalemate right now, in the fact that they are the biggest gambling company in the world by market capitalization. They have been a giant for decades in the gambling world. But they have also been very conservative due to their founder, Sheldon Adelson, who is notoriously anti anything to do with internet. So the owner of Sands can be attributed to the fact that it took so long for the American market to open up for sports betting and online gambling. And so how things turned out now when PASPA was repealed in 2018 and kind of opened the door for online sports betting in the United States is that some operators, some land-based casinos, immediately they took charge, and they immediately kind of strategically set up partnerships to prepare themselves for a digital push. So BetMGM, for example, is a good example. They set their agreement with Entain very, very early after PASPA was repealed, and so that they could enter the market as early as possible. But that is in contrast to Las Vegas Sands, who basically didn't do anything for years and years and years. And that is due to the fact of the owner, then, Sheldon Adelson. Now, Sheldon Adelson passed away last year. And Sheldon Adelson, he passed away, leaving leaving the room for new leadership in the Sounds. And one of the first thing that the new leadership said is that we are now going to pursue a digital strategy as well. We are now going to enter the digital market as well. Now, that was about a year ago, and still nothing has happened. And then you ask the question, why? Okay, what Las Vegas Sound has said is that they want to enter the market as a B2B rather than a B2C, which is what all the other land-based operators have done so far. So WinBet is an operator, of course. BetMGM is an operator. And all these land-based casinos are basically taking their operation digital. Now, Las Vegas Sounds have been studying the digital online opportunity in the States. And they are realizing what we have been talking about in this podcast, which is that it's very difficult to turn a profit as an operator. I mean, as the dust is clearing more and more, it also raises more and more question marks of what is the actual future for the operators. However, looking at the B2B side of things, take the good example of Evolution, of course. They have been generating great profits in the United States by being successful as a supplier in the States. They don't have any marketing expenses that we have been talking about. They don't have the same taxation in many of the states that we're talking about, and so instead they are focused on just building good products, distributing them, and earning money from them. And Evolution has incredible margins on their revenue turning into profits. Something like 70% of the revenue turns into profits at the end of the day. So Las Vegas Sound have then basically said that we want to enter the market as a B2B, and we are waiting for the right opportunity. And in the earning call yesterday, the CEO, what's his name? Rob Goldstein, the CEO. He got to ask the question here: what is the latest now on the digital side? And he reiterated what we just spoke about, which is that we are waiting patiently for the right opportunity to enter at the right time, when the dust has settled and it's clear how we can enter digital in order to be able to generate profits in a sustainable way. That's when we will do it. But they are not going to force anything. They are not looking to have a first mover advantage. Obviously, that it's already way too late. They don't care about that. They want to have the last mover advantage. And the last mover advantage is the most powerful advantage to have, of course, because then you are the last mover and you'll be able to kind of take over that market. So those are some of the synergies here that are taking place. Nico, is there any context more to add to the Las Vegas Sound story? I mean, there's rumors floating around, of course, that they may acquire Evolution, which is a similar market cap to Las Vegas Sounds. What do you think, Nico? Like, how do you think Las Vegas Sounds will eventually enter the digital gambling side?
So just to give a little bit of more context about the Las Vegas Sands, they are big in retail, right? They are big in retail casinos. They are well established in the Asian market. They are quite active in Macau, Singapore. In Singapore, they are just looking forward to actually renovate one of their existing casinos with an overall cost of more than $1 billion. So first of all, their pockets are deep. Floating around, we're in a specific category of big fish, right? Usually you talk about small fish eating smaller fish, or bigger fish eating smaller fish. They are the biggest fish out there. So as soon as the rumor started floating around that they're specifically eyeing to enter the digital market, in the end, they don't follow the kind of car follow, don't lead approach. If they will enter the market, they will buy a certain stand in the market, right? So they won't start fresh. They had been linked with the Evolution takeover, which was valued $40 billion. So it's not like, okay, we might enter the market. They will rocket themselves. They will give themselves a rocket start within the market. So probably They are also eyeing at WinBet with the 14 licenses already. But then, as you mentioned, they would become a B2C supplier, which they obviously and for good reasons don't want to become. So that's why Evolution or one of the other suppliers like the Kambi, maybe Kambi is too small within their point of view. So that's why Evolution would be one of the targets which they're aiming for. And as said, their pockets are deep and they are not playing around. They want to have a specific stand in the food chain, and they won't settle for less than first place.
Absolutely, and that's a good point here as well, which leads to that there aren't that many opportunities on the B2B side to acquire a player which is of a similar size or in the range of a good acquisition for LBS. And you pointed out Kambi, which could be one candidate. I would say also Scientific Games could be an absolute interesting candidate to acquire. I think something like 6 billion market cap on the Scientific Games side, 5 billion, something along those lines. And other than that, like, who knows? Like, maybe they will do a reverse. Maybe they'll take a step back and they will actually consider to acquire a B2C. I saw there was someone who asked the other day, maybe they want to acquire Kindred. And like, as some of the viewers today might know, is that I've been a big proponent and think that Kindred is absolutely ripe to be acquired. And by the way, I owe the internet to eat my own sock. Because I thought that Kindred was going to be acquired before the end of 2021, and as sooner or later that bet will have to be realized. We come from a betting world, and at the end of the day, you have to honor your promises, and I promise to do that at some point. But in any case, going back to Las Vegas Sands, there aren't that many opportunities for them to look at on the B2B side, so they are taking the time. And they will enter when they feel that they have found the right opportunity. Now, it's also worth noting in the quarterly report that they generated about $1 billion in revenue in Q4, which is flat to last year. But they are still not making profit, and they had a net loss in the quarter of almost $200 million. Now, that in contrast of the same quarter last year, they made a net loss of $376 million. So they are, only losing $200 million in the quarter, which is a lot of money. But again, you would think that the shareholders are putting demands on Las Vegas Sands to do something now, because their share price have not moved in the last 10 years, hardly anything. And since the COVID pandemic, it's hardly moved anything. At the same time, BetMGM have been able to increase the share value by something like 400% in the same time, while Las Vegas Sands have hardly moved anything. And so you would think that the shareholders are not very happy about this stalemate that is taking place. But sooner or later, we'll see a movement. Las Vegas Sands is just a bit of a conservative organization with conservative legacy. So we'll have to wait and see what's happening on that front. I can see as well, just before we move on to the next topic of the agenda, Nico, that there are a couple of comments surrounding ICE and the conference space in the iGaming industry. Shall we spend a couple of minutes here and just break down a little bit this as well? Not too long, but perhaps just a couple of minutes, because I see Bogdan is predicting that we'll have a big conference in the UAE within soon, and Jacob points out here rightly that there is already a conference that is taking place already this year, which is the Affiliate Grand Slam. That is taking place in May. And so the problem right now with this conference that is taking place in the UAE is that you're still not able to promote gambling openly. And it's not clear if that is going to take, years and years and years in Dubai specifically. But again, the expectation is that in either of the Emirates, we will eventually have a more liberal approach to gambling. And as we saw here now in RAK, there is this opportunity now with a new regulator in place. So potentially we'll see a conference taking place in not Dubai on a bigger scale, but either of the other Emirates as well. And I'm completely on this line as well. I think as well that ICE is being completely disrupted right now. Some of the biggest exhibitors of the industry is pulling out from ICE, and once the snowball effect is in motion, it's very difficult to stop that momentum. And so if SBC, if Sigma are smart right now, they will look to start a competitor to ICE and kind of challenge the current alpha conference, if you will. Because right now it's a ripe time to do that. And UAE would obviously be the right place to host the conference because it connects Europe with Asia with Africa. And so it's three very interesting. And at the same time, in Asia, it's very difficult to hold major conferences like G2E because of the ambiguousness of the legality. And for those of you who've been to the conferences in Dubai, you might have seen that the Chinese authorities actually sends in infiltrators into that conference in order to shut down certain exhibitors. So there is there is a lot of interesting movements on the front. And yes, as pointed out, the conference in Dubai is taking place in March, not in May. That is organized by Sigma. So yeah, so those are some interesting. But Nico, will you be at ICE? Will you go to ICE in April? It's taking place on Easter weekend. I think that's what's kind of is a little bit of the problem here for ICE, is that they are putting it on a kind of like a family holiday dates, but they don't have much option at the same time.
So for sure, I will attend ICE, but touching down on the latest, not just rumors. What we have seen, that Novomatic officially already released the press release, like, okay, we won't attend ICE this year. I've seen within the comments that also Gauselmann Group is thinking about not attending as well. So it's not like two exhibitors. It's the two big ones, right? Novomatic all nearly taking 10% of the overall exhibition size. Gauselmann, they don't play around as well, taking at least pretty much the same space like Novomatic is taking. So if already 20% of the overall exhibition space is not taken, I don't know how ICE will look like in April when it actually will take place. And as you mentioned within the intro, we already see some other operators. You just dropped some bigger names. They will also not attend ICE as well. So at least 30% as of today are not being taken on the exhibition side, exhibition floor. So this is a massive impact, especially as you're the iGaming Next are hosting events as well. As of now, not in the same category, not the same size. But if already 2.5 months pre-your an event, 30% of the overall exhibition space is kind of stopped. I'm pretty sure it's not an easy pair of shoes to wear. What's your guess on this one?
Yeah, no, it's not, Nico, and I mean, you can just imagine all the complaints that Clarion has to deal with at the moment, because the exhibitors are forced in a way to continue on for this Easter weekend, and they understand that obviously from a delegate point of view, ICE will not be able to deliver the same numbers as a normal year when it's on Easter holiday, the delegate numbers. And so they obviously are not very happy with these dates, and we've already seen now that the likes of Novomatic and Mercur, Scientific Games, Play and Go, others are not exhibiting, and that obviously creates this snowball effect where even less people will attend, and then obviously existing exhibitors are even less happy. It'd be interesting to know for people who are in the chat if your company will exhibit, if your company has changed your mind, if your company is sending the same amount of delegates as you usually do in a normal year. So feel free, guys, if you want to kind of chime in here in the comments with your own thoughts from your own perspective and your own company side as well, and we can follow up on that as well, and we can keep track of this too. And also, I want to welcome Klaus here to the chat to the topic that we have in front of us as well, which is the Evolution short seller report, which we are gonna bring up here in a little bit as well before we start closing up. We have promised Nicholas, our head of marketing, to keep it within the hour, which means that we have 7.5 minutes left. I don't think we're gonna be able to meet his demand today. We might be a couple of minutes over here, but Nico, what do you say? Shall we move on here? What is the next topic? Shall we talk about Sweden for a little bit, perhaps?
Just one more thing. When we just discussed possible M&A opportunities for Las Vegas Sands, we have one more, which is Playtech, right? Playtech
right.
it's also a B2B supply in the news. Just notice as well. So JKO, which is a bidding consortium led by former Formula One owner, or not racing track, kind of racing team owner, Eddie Jordan, and they left the bidding table. They had a bid of 2.7 billion pounds, if I'm mistaken. And now there's some controversy flying around with Aristocrat, because they are still having a seat on the bidding table. But it seems like Asian investors of Playtech, they are not happy with the overall bid of Aristocrat. They hold, or they represent 15% of the overall stocks of Playtech, and the managing director board, they released also a press release that they will have directors meeting on the 2nd of February, where they will finally decide on, okay, which they will take, and they are looking for. So within next week, we will know to whom or to which company Playtech might be sold. I don't know if LVS will still take a seat at the bidding table as well, but for sure within next week we know where Playtech will be heading towards. That's just on a side note, and we just spoke of possible M&A targets for LVS as well. But of course, heading over to Sweden. Looking forward to it. So first of all, they implemented some COVID-related restrictions. Then they got rid of these restrictions once again. And last week or the week before last week, we've been talking about getting these restrictions back. But obviously, there are some news which you would kindly share with us, Pierre, as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you make a very good point here on Playtech, Nico, about if the company would be broken up, the live department will be the big prize for anyone to acquire. They are the number 2 live studio provider after Evolution, of course, and everyone is looking at the market cap of Evolution and the profits that Evolution is making, the margins that they have on the revenue that they are generating, and obviously they want to do the same. And so being able to acquire Playtech's live department should be potentially very lucrative for anyone. And Las Vegas Sands, you would expect them to have an eye on Playtech at the moment. And I'm very surprised that we haven't seen a bid for Playtech by LBS. But let's keep an eye here how this is going to take place. Now, jumping into Sweden, Ardalan Shekarabi is in the news, the Swedish minister, because he announced a couple of weeks ago that there would be new deposit limits implemented on the operators in Sweden that are licensed. Now, that was as a response to the fact that COVID is raging, and we need to kind of protect the players from the sheltered nature of people staying home from the pandemic, and they need to be protected from kind of playing too much online casino and so on. But the problem, of course, the backlash that happened is that the players will just find their way into the unregulated environment, and where they are less protected, and they can deposit how much they want, and they don't have the same responsible gambling checks, of course. So now, from a little bit out of the blue, it was announced here yesterday that Ardalan is making a U-turn here, and the deposit limits will not be implemented on the Swedish customers here as planned. However, we'll do a little bit of a rapid fire shroop-a-roo here into the next subject, which is the fact that at the same time, Ardalan hinted that we might see a B2B license in Sweden. Now, this was picked up yesterday here by Jake Evans, our managing editor, who kind of read between the lines what Ardalan Shekarabi was saying, where he hinted that essentially from 2023, we will see a B2B license in Sweden. So that will affect the likes of Evolution, for example, like we went back to here, which might have to pay taxes in Sweden, and there might be other restrictions that falls under this B2B license. Nico, I don't know if you have any examples of how a B2B license could function and how it looks like in other jurisdictions. It's a little bit of a complicated question here, so I understand if it's a little bit difficult to ask. But do you have any details to chime in with here on kind of like how a B2B license could work?
Yeah, sure. Based on the MGA model of a B2B, B2C license, right? So we are licensed by MGA as well with a B2C license, but of course they also offer B2B licenses as well, right? Just to introduce each and everyone a little bit into how licensing actually works, right? So first of all, you have a law, right? And this law just comes into place with all the, especially in the US, when something is headed over to the Senate and they actually put something into law, right? This is always the baseline. Then you will build an authority, or if an authority is already there, then of course they will have new requirements, how to actually set up things, how to calculate things, and how to deal with things, right? And on a B2B perspective, first of all, you will be applying for a license, right? Then the dialogue with the authority actually starts, and how to read in between the lines of the law, how to interpret the law, and how to actually deal with the law. Then you will just find a specific way with respect to how to operate with the authority, and then licenses will be handed out, which means an operator first of all defines on how they will deal with player security, setup of IT, AML restrictions, etc. Right, and this actually raises the bar to existing operators, and specifically actually highlight for each and everyone to enter the market what they have to cope with, right? This is pretty much how a license actually works. And as you already pointed out, of course, it's in the blood of every politician that you want to tax companies which operate from a specific jurisdiction, from a specific country. And if the taxation of Evolution isn't that big as of now, right? Of course, the Swedish government has a high interest in actually taking their toll from the profitable business of what Evolution is doing as of now. I'm pretty sure because Nordic companies around, so they will not leave Sweden. So they will start being taxed in Sweden as well, and for sure.
Yes.
It will be interesting with what specific requirements the authority will come up with. But whoever is interested, just have a look at what MGA did, what the German regulation will be doing, and what the Dutch regulation already set up with, or the Greek ones as well. We're seeing B2B licenses being handed out in Greek as well. So there are examples of existing B2B regulations already, also within the EU.
Absolutely, and so Evolution didn't have the best day yesterday, and I want to bring up Robin Eric Reed's comment here. He mentioned that it's a rumor that Asia Gaming, which offers the live product as well, is rumored to have around 4 times the Evolution net profits here as well, which would be an absolutely remarkable stat, of course. Obviously, I think for quite obvious reasons, Asia Gaming is not a publicly traded company, and therefore not at the mercy of short seller reports, which is, I guess, the last topic that we're going to slide into here today, which is the fact that yesterday, again, Evolution had a bit of a downer, let's say. They didn't have the best day. First of all, the news came out, of course, that a B2B license might be implemented in Sweden, and the share price fell around 10% yesterday. 2 billion euro was wiped off out of the market cap yesterday from Evolution. And first, people thought that was an overreaction to the to this announcement that there might be a B2B license in Sweden. However, what surfaced later on during the day is that there is rumors that there might be a second short seller report against Evolution that is imminent, according to rumors now on Twitter. Lou Mannheim, who is a quite big Twitter investor personality who is following Evolution, he tweeted about this yesterday. And for those of you guys who hasn't been following this story with Evolution, is the fact that a couple of months ago, a short seller, which is essentially an investor who bets on companies they think will fail, essentially, or that will be valued less in the future on the stock market. They created a report, an investigative report that accused Evolution for taking revenues from sanctioned countries, and that they are not complying with local B2C regulations, and they are not doing enough due diligence on their B2Cs, essentially. And this caused the Evolution share price to fall from 1,500 SEK down to 850 SEK. So they lost about 40% of their share value due to this short seller report. And then it has kind of bounced back up to about 1,300 at its peak. But now it's dropping once again. And the share price is very volatile right now. Shareholders have a really hard time to understand how to value this company because the profits are looking great. Evolution is expected to have a really good quarter revenue-wise, but at the same time, is question marks of how much of these revenues are being generated, and how much of these revenues are nefarious to some extent. I guess you could use as a word, and so. We have not seen this short seller report. It's important to point out, and at this stage, it's still rumors what it consists of. But some people who mentioned on Twitter that they had seen it, and again, it's not confirmed or anything like that. But they were saying, for example, that the report consists of a complaint that Evolution has hired Mandarin-speaking personnel in Canada, and that should kind of allude to the fact that Evolution is actively taking Chinese players. Now, you could also make the argument that they are hiring Chinese-speaking customer support agents and whatnot because they have Chinese players that don't live in China, that are active on the site from other jurisdictions. And considering that Chinese is one of the most spoken languages in the world, and knowing customer support, the department, and so on, that doesn't seem like a very far-fetched idea, so to say. So it's a bit of a rumor at this stage, but again, it has affected the share price significantly yesterday. And I guess the shareholders are waiting now to see if this short seller report will be publicized. And also the fact that today let's check the markets today. So far, Evolution has not moved anything. They are they are at the same at the same valuation as yesterday. So it hasn't continued to fall here. And also, we get to some comments here that Canada has a large Chinese population. Vancouver, Canada alone is around 30 to 40% of the city. Of course, Evolution is Mandarin speakers. 30 to 40% of the population in Vancouver, Canada. So these are kind of the arguments that are being made. But also keep in mind here, for the ones who are listening, is that uh, Evolution is a B2B company. They are not an operator. So they aren't necessarily speaking to players here, as we are saying this too. Now, they might want to have Mandarin dealers because, of course, the players, the Chinese players, even if they live abroad, they might prefer to have Mandarin-speaking dealers and so on and so forth. But it's not kind of customer support agents or anything like this that we're talking about here. It would be more on the dealer side. So we'll have to wait and see if more news are going to come out on this short seller report. We are going to ask our editorial team and myself as well to see if we can find any more information about this short seller report. And if so, keep an eye on our Twitter, iGaming Next, and my Twitter handle is Pierre OBV. We're absolutely going to follow up on this and see what comments or what information we can come up with here. Anything to add to this, Nico, as well?
Yeah, and as Clore and Lars have already been pointing out, right? So Chinese or rich Chinese people, they used to invest into Hong Kong, right? As soon as Hong Kong literally fell back to the Chinese government, they de-invested from Hong Kong, and they, of course, they would never ever touch down in Japan. But what's the next in line? It's Canada, for sure. And that's why Toronto, Vancouver, the well-known cities, they are flooded with Chinese money. So they already have a big issue, if you just speak to Canadian governments, with Chinese people spending their money big time in Canada and literally buying off the real estate businesses. So, as already been pointed out, if Evolution is actually providing their services to Canadian people living in.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Nico. Very, very interesting. And like I said, we will follow up on this. Keep an eye out for on Twitter, and we'll do what we can to kind of dig into this news a bit further as well. Nico, it's been a joy to do this together with you today as well, as it is every week. And I also want to thank Nicholas in the background here, our head of marketing, who has been feeding us with these interesting little graphics that have been appearing here on the screen today. And he's been making sure that we can have this really cool format. We're going to continue to develop this, and we're going to continue doing this every single Friday. And it's an absolute pleasure, Nico. I love doing this. I look forward to it every time. And what do you say, Nico? Shall we head down to the beach and have a little Negroni together? Pina colada. All right. Uh, Absolutely. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Clore. Thank you, Lars, and the phone number appearing on the screen here, and Katie, everyone else who listening today, Robin, Eric, Reed, all the comments we are getting. Good to know that we are being fact checked here, and so that we don't say anything wrong, will be adjusted right away. So again, thank you guys. Have a lovely Friday. Have a lovely weekend. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll be back here next week. Thank you.